Today, Sagla took her daughter to the river to search for wild watermelons. The two of them had a great harvest. They brought it home to share the sweet taste of summer with the children. Sweetness. This morning, as Sagla put on her shoes, she told the children to watch over the sheep at home. She was going to the river to pick some wild watermelons. She also planned to gather some wild honey. Her oldest son was also home today. Sagla asked if he wanted to come along, but her oldest son said he had his own things to do. He wasn't able to go. After getting ready, Sagla and Zainab set off, taking the mountain path toward the river. Mother and daughter have now arrived at the river. There is plenty of water here. The damp environment provides ideal conditions for wild plants to grow. It also means a patch of wild watermelon vines could be hidden nearby. Sagla and Zainab carefully observe the surrounding bushes, searching through the moist soil bit by bit. As they continued on, the mother and daughter searched carefully, but they still found no trace of wild watermelons. Then Sagla noticed the rock cliffs nearby. She decided to see if there were any wild beehives in the crevices. They would gather some honey first. The two of them walked along the river for a while, but they still hadn't collected any wild honey. They sometimes found caves with wild bees, but there were no honeycombs inside. Mother and daughter continued walking along the river valley. Up ahead, there was a mountain spring. They were very thirsty from their long walk. They prepared to stop for a drink of cool spring water to relieve their fatigue. This spring is a natural water source bubbling up from the ground. It's a classic example of a groundwater spring. When groundwater accumulates to a certain level, it finds its way through rock cracks and faults. It naturally flows out from a lower exit point, forming a spring. Sagla asked Zainab to look for beehives along the path. Zainab climbed the steep, rocky cliff to take a look, but she still couldn't find any. Today's gathering was not going smoothly. For nomads, this is a normal part of life. Nature's gifts are never guaranteed. Sometimes you can walk for half a day and find nothing. Other times, if you're lucky, you can find several sources of honey and fruit in the same forest. Sagla and her daughter searched all along the river. They even waded across it several times, checking back and forth between the cliffs on both sides. Finally, on a slightly higher cliff up ahead, Sagla spotted a wild beehive. He could see bees inside, which meant a honeycomb was likely hidden there. Sagla immediately used her iron hook to reach into the hole to pull out the honeycomb. Although she wore gloves and a face covering when dealing with wild bees, this protection is still not foolproof. Sagla was still stung by the bees. She endured the pain, and soon she pulled out a small piece of the honeycomb. Although they raise their own bees at home, Sagla still comes to the mountains to collect. She believes the quality of wild honey is usually better than domestic honey. The nectar source for wild bees mostly comes from wildflowers deep in the mountains. There's a wide variety of these plants, and they grow without human interference. This makes the honey they produce more pure and natural. The taste is richer in comparison. Domesticated bees often collect nectar within a fixed area. Their nectar source is less diverse. making the flavor and nutrients slightly inferior. So even though the gathering process is hard and getting stung is unavoidable, Sogla continues to search for this sweet gift from nature. Every cell in this piece of honeycomb glistens, completely filled with honey. Sogla only takes the parts of the comb that are full of honey. The empty parts of the comb she will put back in the hive. This allows the wild bees to continue living and producing honey in their original home. After finishing at this spot, mother and daughter continue their search for the next one. Inside this rock crevice, you can clearly see a swarm of wild bees. They are constantly busy inside the honeycomb. This one will be much easier to collect from. In just a moment, Sogla hooks a few pieces of honeycomb. She picks out a piece that is full of golden honey. The rest of the pieces are either half full or empty combs. She puts all of those back. After collecting honey from this spot, Sogla decides not to search any further. It's difficult to find beehives in the cliffs around this area. Now, the mother and daughter plan to find a place to rest. Zainab is gathering some dry wood to build a fire. As her mother's capable helper, she helps share the workload at crucial moments. In this family, besides the two oldest brothers, Zainab and Zara are the next oldest. The younger siblings are still too little to understand and don't want to come out to gather food. The two older brothers are already grown up with their own work and responsibilities. They rarely have time to accompany their mother. Their father also works away from home, shouldering the other half of the family's financial burden. And so, the only person available to go out with Sogla and share the task of gathering, naturally, is Zainab. The two of them wade through the river and arrive in front of this waterfall. The cliff is high, and water pours down from above, kicking up a lot of mist. It looks especially magnificent. They decide to build a fire in front of the waterfall to boil water and brew a pot of hot tea. They can enjoy the cool mist while drinking their hot tea. It's a unique experience. Sogla takes the kettle to the base of the waterfall and fills it with clear waterfall water. In this kind of high mountain gorge, waterfall water mostly comes from rain and melted snow on the peaks. For Sogla, this mountain spring water is the purest supply available. It's better than water taken from many other places. Looking at the spectacular waterfall before her, Sogla feels a bit excited, even though they haven't found a single watermelon. This waterfall has brought the mother and daughter unexpected surprise and joy. On the rock wall next to the waterfall, there's even a crab. It sits alone on the rock, as if it's also quietly enjoying the coolness of the waterfall. The cliff face around the waterfall is very humid, with plenty of mist. This keeps the crab's gills moist, allowing it to breathe normally, without being fully submerged in water. The cliff also provides a natural hiding place to escape from predators in the river. After a little while, the tea is ready. Mother and daughter sit in front of the waterfall, drinking their hot tea. With a view like this, the long journey becomes worthwhile. After finishing their tea, the two of them carried their cloth bags and wade through the fast-moving current toward the opposite bank. The river current is strong, so the mother and daughter have to proceed with caution. They held hands, so the current wouldn't sweep them off their feet. But then disaster struck. Sagra's foot slipped, and she fell right into the river, getting completely soaked. Once safely on the bank, Sagra let out a long sigh of relief. Living out here in these mountains and rivers, crossing rivers and climbing rocks, and trekking through valleys is just a part of their daily life. But they still have to be extra careful every time they cross the water. Because out here in nature, any little mistake can be risky. The mother and daughter made their way to a part of the riverbank with more vegetation, hoping to find some watermelons growing there. Sagra reminded Zainab to pay close attention to the grassy areas and tall plants. Wild watermelons often hide their vines under thick patches of grass, and the fruit can be hidden by heavy leaves. It's easy to miss them if you don't look carefully. The two of them searched for a long time, and finally, their hard work paid off. Sagra spotted a watermelon at the edge of the grass. This watermelon was a medium size, weighing about 7 to 11 pounds. But for a wild melon in the mountains, that's actually a pretty good size. This one didn't look fully ripe yet. On a fully mature watermelon, the little tendril near the stem will be dry or even withered. This melon's vine was still pretty green, which meant it probably needed a little more time to be perfectly ripe. But it was already about 70 or 80% ripe. If they picked it and ate it now, it would probably be sweet. But the texture might not be at its best, most flavorful state. It would likely be sweeter once the stem and vine started to dry out. The mother and daughter kept searching. Soon, Zainab, who was walking ahead, found another watermelon. It was about the same size as the first one. Just as she was getting excited, Sagra spotted another one up ahead. In just a short time, they had found 3 watermelons. Right behind this big rock, the cameraman found another one. That brought their total to 4 big watermelons. The watermelon season here is usually from mid-July to early September. At different altitudes, the ripening time can vary by 2 to 4 weeks. This type of watermelon might be a native wild species, or it could have grown naturally from seeds left behind by nomads or valley residents years ago. Watermelon seeds are very resilient. As long as they have the right amount of moisture and sunlight, they can sprout and grow on their own. The mother and daughter placed the 4 watermelons in the river to let the cool water chill them down. Looking at these heavy, large watermelons, Sagra and Zainab's faces were filled with pure joy. When they bring these watermelons home, the children will be so happy. This was the reward for their hard work. Sagra then picked one of the watermelons, cut it open with a knife, ready to taste it and see how it was. As the rind was cut open, the flesh inside was a light pink to pale red color. Not the deep red of a fully ripe melon. Looking closely at the flesh, you could see its texture was a bit loose, and it wasn't very juicy. The fiber's texture was quite noticeable. However, this was already the ripest of the 4 melons. Sagra offered a small piece to the cameraman to try. After everyone had a taste, they all agreed this watermelon tasted pretty good. After eating the watermelon, the 2 of them put the remaining 3 in a bag. Sagra carried 2 and gave the last one to Zainab. carrying the cloth bags. They started their journey back home. Their foraging trip today had a rough start. But in the end, nature didn't let them down. They got for watermelons and a little bit of honey. After a long walk on the mountain path, they finally made it home before dark. When Yasin saw his mom and sister come home, he immediately started dancing with joy, doing a happy little dance to welcome them. Seeing his sister and mom pull a big watermelon out of the bag, Yasin's eyes lit up right away. He excitedly hugged the watermelon and continued to jump and dance in celebration. Yasin is always the life of the party at home. With him around, there's never a shortage of laughter and fun. Sagra has a special soft spot for her youngest son, even though she has many children and a lot to do. In her heart, Yasin is always her little treasure who needs extra care. Now for the most exciting moment. Cutting open the watermelon to see what surprise they got. Unfortunately, this watermelon surprise wasn't a good one. Most of the inside was still a light pink, almost white. There was hardly any of the deep red color of a ripe watermelon. Clearly, this one was far from being ready to eat. The second watermelon was a little better when they cut it open. You could see some black seeds had developed, but not many. It was still underripe. The flavor was still mild and not very sweet. Next up to be cut is Yasin's special watermelon. Everyone waited for this surprise moment. To everyone's delight, Yasin's watermelon was much riper than the first two. The center part was a deeper color and looked like it would be somewhat sweet. It was about 70 to 80% ripe, although it wasn't as sweet as the deep red, sugary watermelons from the market. In this high mountain valley, a light sweetness like this was a rare treat. Where did the time go? After finishing the watermelon, the kids quickly shifted from the fun atmosphere back to their daily chores. They herded the goats into the pen, ready for milking. After the mother goats eat during the day, their milk production is relatively high. Milking in the evening provides the freshest milk and also eases the mother goat's discomfort, allowing them to rest better at night. Milking the goats is one of Zainab's daily chores. Whenever she's home, she's almost always the one to do it. Sometimes when Zainab is out with her mother, the milking duty is passed on to Fatima and Zagrar.